We have the anchor of The Lead, CNN's The Lead, Jake Tapper, who in his spare time has written a best-selling a book called The Outpost, and is an expert on Afghanistan. And of course, Jake, you've also been covering the Bowe Bergdahl story and the captivity for years. Tell me just what you make of this.
Well, it's a great day, obviously, for his family. Bowe Bergdahl finally being released by the Pakistani Taliban after 5 years in captivity. It is a complicated case, and just to help viewers understand why this isn't being treated with the ticker tape one might expect would happen, or why maybe they hadn't heard of Bowe Bergdahl. The case starts in June 2009 in Paktika province in Afghanistan. Bergdahl apparently left the base on his own accord, and it's not clear why he did so. Bergdahl, it was later reported in June 2012 by the late Michael Hastings, had written a number of emails to his parents expressing serious misgivings about what the U.S. was doing in Afghanistan. So there have always been questions among troops and officers about why Bergdahl exactly left. Was he leaving? What the reason was behind his leaving the base. Obviously, he was captured by the Taliban. Obviously, he became a prisoner. In very different ways throughout the years, it's been relayed to those of us in the media who have been paying attention to his case that it might not be a good idea to report on his case because efforts were being made to get him out. And sometimes those trying to free him, those in the U.S. government, either with the State Department or the military, were making efforts, and they thought that the more attention the case got, especially during sensitive times, the worse and the more difficult it would be for those trying to free him. Finally, it looks as though those efforts have borne fruit. It was earlier this year, I believe in January, when there was a tape that CNN's Jim Sciutto and others reported on that had been made showing Bergdahl from the Pakistani Taliban. And the question was, why was this tape made? It was reported in February of this year that it was a proof-of-life video, that those in the U.S. government who wanted him freed and were willing to negotiate with the Taliban an apparent prisoner exchange needed proof that Sergeant Bergdahl was still alive, and that's why that videotape was made. That was reported in February. And then things went quiet. Efforts continued to be made, but it took some time. And finally, of course, the good news today that apparently the trade has been made, the exchange has been made, that U.S. Special Forces, which would be Army, either Delta Force or Green Berets, picked him up, and he'll be returned to his family in Idaho. But I suspect there are still going to be lots of questions for Bergdahl, not just intelligence gathering in terms of what he saw while he was in enemy hands, but why exactly he left the base.
That's one question I was exactly going to ask you, Jake, and that is, Barbara Starr and I were talking earlier about that, the questions about how this captivity even happened, about the fact that he wandered off on his own, and kind of now that, the excellent news is that he's free. Now what happens to him? Is he going to, go through the obvious recovery and process and then kind of move on? Or is the Army going to drill down on the circumstances that led to him wandering off?
That's a question that better asked of Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel. I suspect that his 5 years in captivity will speak for itself. But then again, you never know what motivated his leaving that base in Paktika province that evening. I know. Look, having covered the war in Afghanistan, there were tremendous efforts made to find then Private, now Sergeant Bergdahl, in the summer of 2009 in Afghanistan, and in some cases, those efforts hindered the ability of the United States military to do other things because they had so much reconnaissance and other efforts and other assets devoted to finding him. So if those who use social media and are on Facebook or Twitter or are in the military or part of the military or part of that world, if they hear grumblings from troops know that that's the reason why. There are questions about why he left the base and the tremendous efforts made to find him, none of which takes away from the fact that he was a prisoner of war, and that everybody is rejoicing that he is safe and he will get to go back to his loving parents in Idaho. But it is a complicated case,
yes.
And it will remain so. And I suspect there are many people in the military who, after Bergdahl has gotten his bearings, will want to know exactly what happened.
No question about it. It is certainly excellent news. There's no disputing that, but there are a lot of questions. This is not a black and white case. Jake, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. And we're going to continue with this breaking news. More information on how this rescue happened